Good afternoon. This is Victoria Beal with the Ohio LTAP Center, and we are very pleased to be partnering with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion to bring to you this afternoon a webinar on the Civil Rights and Labor Subcontractor Payment Reporting. We have Await Suplikar, who will be presenting this afternoon, and then we also have David Walker, who will be joining in when we get to the question and answer period. Just a couple of housekeeping items, and then I'll be turning things over to Await. First off, we do have everybody in listen-only mode because we want to cut down on the background noise for the webinar and make sure everyone's able to hear what the presenter is saying. When we get to the portion for the questions and answers, we will be reading those off, and we encourage you to put whatever questions you have throughout the presentation into the chat pod or the question box there on your GoToWebinar panel. And you don't have to wait till we get to that part to put the questions in. As they come up, go ahead and put them in there. And then if we do not have sufficient time at the very end to respond to all of them, we will also be sending out a list of all the questions along with written responses once the webinar is complete. So with that, the only other thing I want to mention is that we do have one more viewing of this webinar coming up on February 5th. If you have any colleagues that still need to view it and want to do so live as you are here today, we would encourage you to have them sign up. We are attempting to record this webinar. If the recording is successful, we'll be posting that to our YouTube site and sending everyone a link to it. If the recording is not successful, then we will, at least we have you here live, and we do have an earlier recording of the same webinar that was offered last week that we do have on our YouTube channel. So with that, Await, are you ready?
I am ready. Thanks, Victoria.
Thank you. All yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Civil Rights and Labor Subcontractor Payment Reporting webinar. My name is Await Suplikar, a business analyst with the Office of Business and Economic Opportunity here at ODOT. Our agenda for today, we're going to go over the introduction and purpose. We'll discuss what AASHTOWare Project Civil Rights and Labor is, and we'll talk about prompt payment, the payment requirements, and FHWA 1273. And then we'll go ahead and show you how to enter those payments in CRL as a demonstration. And we have some reports available for you as well that you can use. And we'll discuss that along with payment affidavits. And then we have contact information, and then followed up with any questions that you may have. So we'll go ahead and get started. Introduction and purpose. The introduction is to inform prime contractors and subcontractors on ODOT-let construction projects on how to record payments in CRL for the purpose of being in compliance with contractual requirements and FHWA regulations. So a notice to industry was sent back in December 12th of 2019, and that notice included the prime contractors working on contracts that include Proposal Note 31 shall become compliant by entering and signing all previously made subcontractor payments for open projects by February 1st, 2020, and by continuing to enter and sign subcontractor payments as they are made. There were two previous notices to industry, and they were sent on January 9th of 2016, and also June 29th of 2017. So let's go ahead and we'll discuss AASHTOWare projects and civil rights and labor. So what is AASHTOWare project? So AASHTOWare project is a web-based enterprise system for managing the construction contract lifecycle from estimation to construction. It's designed by transportation professionals for transportation professionals. It's web-based software with external access options. So you as contractors will access AASHTOWare project from external access. It has mobile app capability for the field use. It's cloud hosted, and it's 30 years plus in production. So just to give you a brief overview of the technical aspect of it, it is data that's stored in a single location, uses single standard security model, and captures the information at the source, and also has reporting capability at each module. And we'll also be looking at one of the reports within CRL itself. So the module that we're going to be focusing on is down to the lower left there, which is the AASHTOWare project, Civil Rights and Labor. And that's the module that you use to record your payments and then also verify your payments. So AASHTOWare project is also used by 50 agencies, including Washington, D.C. and 2 Canadian provinces. So CRL, so Civil Rights and Labor, is a module within AASHTOWare project that allows for the effective administration of an agency's external civil rights and labor compliance activities. So contractors, both primes and subs, use CRL to submit electronic contractor payment information. So this will accelerate the decommissioning of the paper-based payment affidavit process that's currently in place. So let's talk briefly about prompt payment. So prompt payment, so after ODOT makes a payment to the prime contractor for work on a contract, the prime is in turn responsible for paying its subcontractors. And when the prime contractor has paid the subcontractors, those subcontractors are responsible for paying their own subcontractors or tier subcontractors. So the requirement comes from Proposal Note 31, the Code and Federal Regulations 4926.29 requires that ODOT establish a mechanism to monitor prompt payment requirements to all subcontractors. Additionally, Ohio Revised Code 4113.61, the timeline limitations on payments to subcontractors and material men establish payments must be made within 10 calendar days after receipt of payment from the owner. So after ODOT has paid the prime contractor, has within 10 days to make its payment to the subcontractor. So the prime contractor shall notify the department that has complied with prompt payment requirements set forth in Construction Material Specification 107.21, utilizing Civil Rights and Labor. And the prime will enter the subcontract payments within 10 calendar days of payment from ODOT. So regarding retainage, promptly release any retainage held as set forth in subcontractor or supplier agreements within 10 days of department's acceptance of the work involving subcontractor or supplier from whom retainage has been held. For the sole purpose of establishing a time frame for the release of subcontractor or supplier retainage, acceptance of subcontractor or supplier work will occur when the subcontractor or supplier has complied with requirements 109.12 A, B, and C. Okay, also, this requirement that the contractual obligation be placed in all subcontractor that it enters into further require that all subcontractors place the same payment obligation to each of its lower tier contracts as well. So if you're holding a retainage as a subcontractor for a lower tier subcontractor, you'll also release that within 10 days of department's acceptance of work. And we're going to also be going through retainage as an example within Civil Rights and Labor. Briefly discuss FHWA 1273. 1273 must be physically incorporated, not referenced, in all contracts, subcontracts, and lower tier subcontracts. This excludes purchasing orders, rental agreements, and other agreements for supplies or services related to a construction contract. So ODOT physically incorporates FHW 1273 in all federal contracts, and subsequently the prime contractor must meet this contractor obligation by placing 1273 in all subcontractor and supplier contracts that it enters into, and further require that all subcontractor and suppliers place the same in each of the lower tier contracts as well. So during signing process for prompt payment, the prime and subs can acknowledge receiving a physical copy of 1273. So here's an example that's a screenshot from Civil Rights and Labor when acknowledging 1273. So this is what the prime will see, the default text that's entered in, and it reads, by verifying the subcontractor paying, the payer certifies it received a physical copy of Form 1273, physically incorporated in each subcontract, and required that its inclusion in all lower tier subcontracts. So one thing to note on 1273, that if it's a 100% state-funded project, this text can be removed. So if you're working on a state project that's 100% funded by the state, please go ahead and remove this text. And if you're not sure if it's state funded or if it's federally funded, it's optional to leave this text in there. Okay, and similarly, when the subcontractor goes to verify the payment, they're going to receive a similar text as well. And again, if the project is 100% state funded, please go ahead and remove the default text that's entered in. And we're going to be seeing this during the demonstration part of the webinar where the FHW 1273 acknowledgement text is entered. So entering and signing payments in CRL. So here's a overview of the workflow process. So if you're a prime contractor, you'll enter the subcontractor payment records for work the subcontractors performed for each estimate payment and sign the subcontract payment. So the prime enters the payment for each estimate and then they sign it. And then it goes to under payee review. So the subcontractor will verify receipt of that subcontractor payment. And then the agency can review those transactions. And that completes the process. So let's go ahead and go through an actual demo of entering the payments as a prime contractor, signing those payments as a prime contractor, and then we'll log in as a subcontractor and we'll go ahead and verify receipt of that payment. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my browser here. Now this is a training environment that I'm using to log into. You will actually use the actual production environment to log into. So if you already have access to CRL, you should have been provided a link to the login site, and you would log in with your username, your password. And then when you log in, please make sure you select ODOT Online. There are two domains available here, DOT and ODOT Online. For external use, you need to use ODOT Online. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my username, which is already entered, and that's pcontract, and I'm going to log in as a prime contractor. Now, please bear with me as this is a training environment and it just takes a little bit of time to log in, but in your production environment, it's much faster. So we'll wait to log in here. Okay, so it's loading the page now. So now I'm logged in as the prime contractor in Civil Rights and Labor. And the role that I want to use when I log in is the one that's checked, ODOT Contractor Subpayment. So you need to have this role in order to conduct the subcontractor payment process at both the prime and the subcontractor. So please, if you do not have this role, you can contact CRL support, and that contact information will be provided to you later in this webinar. So we want to make sure we have that role checked, which I do. And this is the home page that you'll see. And then under contract overview, you want to enter in the contract ID of the contract that you want to enter a payment for. So I'm going to go ahead and use my contract ID, which is LAK 87799. And you can see here that I get the contract. I'm a prime contractor. I'm logged in as Kokosin Construction Company. And then once I have the contract ID, I'll go ahead and click on that contract ID. And now I will get here, once the page is loaded, the list of estimates. This is the list of estimates in which I can record a payment out to. So I'm going to use estimate 3 for this demonstration. So I'll go ahead and click estimate number 3. And then this takes you to the contract payment summary page. And you can see the actual paid amount on this estimate and the previous total paid amount and the total paid to date amount, which is the paid amount plus the previous total paid amount. Okay, so I want to go ahead and record a payment out to my subcontractor. Okay, so the way I do that is by go ahead and clicking on the subcontract payments tab. And now you can see here, I currently do not have any payments recorded. So I have a link here, which is the add subcontract payment from Prime link. So I'll go ahead and click that link. And this goes ahead and launches the page to add the subcontractor payment. Now, if you hover over the labels for each of these, you can see the actual tooltip launches. So here's the payer, which is the reference vendor ID of the payer. And then if you go ahead and hover over payee, this is the reference vendor ID of the payee or the subcontractor that you're going to make a payment out to. So I'm going to go ahead and use Lake Erie Construction Company. And you can see here that it's displayed here as in the results list. And I'll go ahead and select that. Now the vendor ID is displayed here for Lake Erie Construction Company. And now I want to enter in a payee payment number, which is a unique identifier to the payment. So my suggested method of entering the unique payment identifier is start with your estimate. So it's estimate 3. So I'll start with 3. And then since it's the first estimate, I'll use 01. So I'll go ahead and use 301 as my payee payment number. This way, it's easy to keep track of which payee payment number you want to use. Okay, and the date paid. So let's go ahead for this example and enter in yesterday's date, as that's the date that it was paid on. And then we'll go ahead and select the payment type. The options are either final or progress. So is it a final payment or is it a progress payment? And again, you can hover over the actual label here to see the type of payments that's available. So I'm going to go ahead and select final payment here. And I'm going to enter an amount here. I'm going to enter in $12,500 for my example. Now, this is the example here. If the prime contractor is holding retainage, you want to go ahead and include that. So for example, let's say the actual amount was $13,000 and I was holding back $500 retainage for a specific reason. I'd want to just enter in the $12,500 and know that I'm holding back $500 retainage, which will be released at a later time in a different payment that I'll be recording. Okay. And then I also, if I want to indicate the payee work complete indicator, I would go ahead and check that as well. So for this example, I'm just going to leave it as unchecked. Okay. Now, now that I've entered my payment data for this estimate, I want to go ahead and save the record. As you can see here, the current messages, there are unsaved changes. So please make sure that you go to the Save button and press the Save button. Now the payment has been saved, and that's the first process, first step in the process. Okay, now we're ready to actually sign the payment. So if you go here to the contract payment link, you want to go ahead and click that link, and then go ahead and click on the subcontract payments tab. And you can see here the actual payment that was recorded. And then if I open up the row actions menu for this payment record, you'll see here there's a link for sign subcontract payment. And that's the link I'd want to select when I'm ready to sign. But if you notice something, if like during the payment recording and you notice, okay, I accidentally put in the wrong amount, or I put in the wrong date paid, or something is incorrect, you can delete this payment before signing it. So what you would do to delete it is you would click on the delete link, and then you would go ahead and press the save button. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. If you find something that was incorrectly entered, you can go ahead and delete that payment and then re-enter it in. But keep in mind that once you sign the payment, you cannot delete it. Okay, so we're ready in this example to go ahead and sign the payment. So I'll go ahead and click on my link here, sign subcontractor payment. And it's a three-step process here. And the first step here is to review. And during the review phase, once the page is loaded, you'll see the subcontract payment report, okay, which is displayed here. And it's highlighted here, the subcontractor payment report. Again, this is a feature of AASHTOWare Project Civil Rights and Labor. It has the ability to have inbuilt reports. And you see here the actual report that's displayed. So here's my payee payment number, 301, the payee ID, and who I made the payee to, the date, and the paid amount. Okay, so if everything looks good, I'm ready to go to the next step. So please scroll down to the bottom and click the right blue arrow. Okay, and the step 2 is to verify. So you as the prime contractor, you're verifying this payment that you made out to your subcontractor. And it gives you the actual paid date as well. So once you're good with the verification, you want to go ahead and scroll to the bottom and then click the right blue arrow again. Now I'm ready to sign the payment. Now, as I mentioned previously, the FHWA 1273 acknowledgement, the text here is entered by default. But if this project you're working on is completely state funded, you can go ahead and highlight this text and you can go ahead and press the delete button so that it's not required for any project that's 100% state funded. Okay, so since this is a federally aided project, we'll go ahead and leave the text in there. And then I'm ready to sign my payment. So I'll go ahead and press the sign payment button. And you can see the message here, successfully signed subcontract payment. Okay, so one thing you can also do is click on the endorsements, and I'll see here that I have signed it as a prime contractor and the date that it was signed. But what's still pending here is the payee. The payee needs to review it. So that's our next step. So let's go ahead and log off as the prime contractor, and we're going to log in as our subcontractor. And I have it already saved here. And I'm using my subcontractor username. And again, you want to log in with the ODOT online domain. Okay, I'll go ahead and press the log on button. And now I'm logged in as the subcontractor. Also keep in mind again that you want to use the role ODOT contract subpayment. It's the same role as a prime contractor or as a subcontractor. So under the contract overview, you want to enter in your contract that you are ready to verify the payment for. So we were using LAK 87799. And you can see that the contract is displayed here and the prime contractor name is displayed. So I'll go ahead and click on the contract ID. And I can see here, oh, I have 3 estimates that are available to me. Now, I only see those estimates where the prime contractor has recorded payment out to me and has signed them. You may see ones that aren't signed, but they won't be ready for you to verify. So we know that the prime contractor has entered the payment on estimate 3 and has signed it. So we want to go ahead and click estimate 3. And then again, you want to click on the subcontract payments tab. And here's our payment record made from our prime contractor, Kokosin Construction Company, to Lake Erie Construction Company. And you can see here, it's the actual details of the payment. And then I'll go ahead and open up the row actions menu for that payment. And I want to go ahead and select the verify payment link. Okay, so as a subcontractor, I'm going to select that link, verify payment. And similarly, as a subcontractor, I'm going to see the subcontract payment report, the actual paying vendor, the payee payment number, payee ID, and the payment date and the paid amount. So when I'm ready, I want to go ahead and click the right blue arrow at the bottom. And now this is where I'm going to verify my payment. So I'm going to say, yes, this payment as expected. Now the options are as no, as expected, and yes, not as expected. So for our demonstration, we'll say yes, the payment is as expected. We received $12,500, and the date we received it was today because it was done as an electronic transfer. And I'm not going to check my payee work on contract complete, so we'll leave that unchecked. And then here again, the acknowledgement text for FHWA 1273. If it's a state-funded project, you would want to delete this default text. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the text in there for my example, and then click the right blue arrow. And now I'm ready to go ahead and submit my verification. And go ahead and press my button. Okay. And now you can see here in the endorsements, I have both the prime has signed it, the date they signed it, and the subcontractor and the date they signed it as well. Okay. So this is the process of the prime entering the payment to the subcontractor and the subcontractor verifying that payment. Now let's say we have a tiered subcontractor, a subcontractor who's working for our subcontractor, which is Lake Erie Construction Company. What we'd want to do is go ahead and click on the contract payment and click on subcontract payments. And we want to open up the row actions menu, and we want to add new payment from payee. So we're adding a payment here to our tiered subcontractor. And I'm going to choose an example here. I'm just going to go ahead and select a subcontractor or tiered subcontractor. Rat Builder Supply Incorporated. And I'm going to go ahead and put in my payee payment number. This time I'll go ahead and put 302. And then I'm going to say date paid today. We're going to say that this is a progress payment, and let's say we paid them $800. And we'll go ahead and leave the payee work complete indicator unchecked for now. So now I want to go ahead and save this payment record. And then I want to go ahead and click on the contract payments link. And then once I press or click on the subcontract payments tab, you can see the two payments here. The first one, which was made out from the prime to the sub, and now the one that's made out from the sub to the tiered sub. So I want to go ahead and open up the row actions menu for the payment entry that I just made. And I want to go ahead and sign that subcontract payment. And we'll wait for our review. Okay, again, very similar. You're going to see the subcontract payment report. We'll scroll to the bottom, click the right blue arrow. Here's the verification text. And again, we'll scroll to the bottom and click the right blue arrow. And again, you'll see here the FHWA 1273. So as a subcontractor, I need to include FHWA 1273 in all my lower tier subcontracts as well. So we'll go ahead and leave that default text in there, and we'll go ahead and sign the payment. So now we've gone ahead and recorded this payment to our tiered subcontractor. And you can see here, if I click on the endorsements, that I signed it as my subcontractor. And what's still pending is the payee or the tiered subcontractor to go ahead and review this payment. So let's log off again. And now this time, I'm going to go ahead and log in as my tiered subcontractor. And again, I want to go out online. And I want to go ahead and press the log on button. Now I have my password saved here, but you would enter that in if you don't have it saved. Now I'm logged in as the tiered subcontractor, Wrath Builders. Okay, and I want to go ahead and enter that contract ID, LAK 87799, and it gets displayed here. And then I can see my three estimates here. So I'll go ahead and click on estimate 3, because that's the estimate that we just recorded a payment for. And then you want to go ahead and click on the subcontract payments tab. And here is the payment record that we just recorded as a subcontractor to our tiered subcontractor. And I want to go on up the row actions menu. And I want to verify the payment. Again, we'll go through the process here of reviewing the subcontractor payment report. And I see all the data is correctly entered. It's $800 that was paid out to me as a tiered subcontractor. And then I want to go ahead and verify the receipt. The options again are no, yes as expected, yes, not as expected. So we'll go ahead and say yes, as expected. Received $800 and we received it today. And then we'll go ahead and leave our default text in there for FHWA 1273. And we'll go ahead and click the right blue arrow. And we're ready to go ahead and submit the verification. Okay. And then if you click on the endorsements tab, again, you'll see here who assigned it, our subcontractor, and then the review is done by our tiered subcontractor. So we've walked through the whole process here. The prime entering in the payment, signing the payment for that estimate, the subcontractor going and verifying that payment, and then also the subcontractor entering a payment to the tiered subcontractor and the tiered subcontractor verifying the payment that it received from the subcontractor. Okay, that's the demonstration from the application side. I do want to make a note here that I did mention that retainage needs to be entered in the paid amount field. We are looking to, in the future release, to actually have the withholding tab enabled in CRL. And I have a screenshot of it here, but it's not available right now in the application. But it will look very similar to what you see here. There's going to be a withholding tab, and you would actually enter in the retainage dollars held, and then you indicate if the payment or partial amount withheld indicator, and then if you had any comments, that's where you would enter that in. Once we have this tab enabled, we'll go ahead and send a notification to the industry that's available for you when you are holding retainage, to go ahead and enter the actual retainage in this field. And then when you're recording a future payment, you would go ahead and release that retainage within the actual paid amount. So that is coming in the near future, and once we have it available, you'll get a notification. Okay, I want to go ahead and continue my the presentation here. So we did go through the demonstration, and this slide deck will be available to you, and it does have screenshots available, very similar to what I presented to you. Now, I want to go ahead and discuss a couple of reports here. We do have two reports available. The first one here is the contractor with missing subpayments and/or signatures. So if you're a prime contractor, you may use this report, and strongly encouraged to do this, to see which payments that you need to enter a payment on, or which estimates that you need to record a payment on. For example, here, I have a estimate number 2, and I can see here it's in red. So if it's in red, I do not have any payments recorded on that estimate. So if, as a prime contractor, if I know I need to record payments on that estimate, I want to go ahead and go through the process of what I just did right now, of recording that payment to my subcontractor. Now, if this is self-performed, meaning the prime did the work on that estimate and there's no subcontract work, you would not record any payment to any subcontract. Okay, and then similarly, if you had a payment that was recorded but not signed, you would go and see it there where it says no in the signed column. So please note this URL, and this report is available for you, and it's a good way to track on which payments you need to record out to your subcontractor. And likewise, the subcontractor can use this report to see which ones that they need to go ahead and verify, meaning that the prime has entered the payment on an estimate and signed it, but you as a sub still need to go ahead and verify the payment. So again, this is available for your use. Go ahead and save the URL. I recommend saving as a favorite. That way you can launch it at any time. And ODOT will be regularly monitoring these reports and may contact you if there are a significant amount of records for a particular contract with no payments recorded. So just, please make every effort you can to go ahead and do your part to record your payments for your estimates, and also go ahead and verify your payments as well. Let's go ahead and go through payment affidavits. We did briefly discuss that earlier in the demonstration. What is a payment affidavit? The affidavit seeks to verify the actual payments made to DBE firms on the project. So each DBE firm must verify the actual payment amount. So brief overview of the process is that the prime contractor submits to DBE's subcontractor the notarized interim and final affidavit. And then the DBE will sign and notarize the interim and final affidavit and returns to the prime. And then the prime contractor will submit those affidavits to the DBE, the ODOT DBE Goal Attainment Coordinator. That's the current process that's in place. And we ask that you still keep this process in place until you hear otherwise. So it's still a requirement to have these payment affidavits submitted. So the difference between payment affidavits and CRL is, first of all, the payment affidavits are only for DBEs, and payment affidavits do not allow ODOT to monitor prompt payment. Whereas CRL, it captures all payments to all subcontractors, DBE and non-DBE. Okay, as I mentioned, we have contact information. CRL support, if you need to get onboarded to CRL, or if you need the role for conducting payment processing, please contact CRL support, and please note the email address, dot.crl.support@dot.ohio.gov. Okay, we also have a CRL resource website, and you can see the actual URL there. And then if you have any questions for the specific contract compliance officer that's assigned to that contract, you can get a list of those compliance officers at the URL listed here at the bottom of this slide. So please do contact us if you have any questions or need assistance. Reference materials, we do have a subcontractor payments computer-based training that's available. It's available on the Civil Rights and Labor resource website. If you go to the reference materials, you'll see a link there to subcontractor payments. It's an interactive guide. Please note you need to use Internet Explorer and have Adobe Acrobat Reader and Flash installed. So it will not work in Chrome, so please make sure you use an Internet Explorer. Frequently asked questions. We have posted our frequently asked questions at the URL. This is for payment reporting. So please visit this URL. And complaint hotline. So if you have any complaints for DB fraud, contracting fraud, prompt payment violations, discrimination, please note the phone number and email address. And with that, we'll go ahead and open up with any questions. And as Victoria mentioned, we also have David Walker joining us.
Hi, yes, I'm David Walker, Accountability Manager in the Office of Business and Economic Opportunity for ODOT, and I work with ODOT. And I'll be asking the questions, and ODOT will be answering, and I'll help answer too if we need to. So let's get started. The first question is, will a notification be given to the subcontractor that they have payments to approve from the prime contractor?
So currently the system doesn't send a notification. So you can visit the two reports that I mentioned to see which ones that as a subcontractor you need to go ahead and verify. Or if this prime contractor contacts you, you can go ahead and use that as a notification. We are looking for in the future to have the system notify the subcontractor when the actual payment is ready to be verified.
All right. Let's see. I thought we had to add item numbers when entering a subcontractor payment.
Yes, it's not a requirement from our proposal note. It is available there currently. It is optional, but it's not a requirement. And in future release for CRL, we are looking to go ahead and remove that option. So at the item level, it's not required, but you are required to do it at the level above, which is the subcontractor payment level.
Okay. When would the payee work complete indicator button be filled?
When the actual work is completed by that payee on that contract.
Okay, and I guess related to that, what if a payment made is later found out to be the final payment? Can that be fixed?
The prime contractor can go ahead and enter a new payment out as a final payment if there is an additional amount that needs to be paid. I guess
would they just enter a? I mean, would they just enter a $0 payment if there was for the final?
Yeah, if there's no additional amount to be paid, then yeah, they can go ahead and enter a 0 amount, and then they would just mark that as final. And then if the payee work is complete, they would just go ahead and check that checkbox, and then the subcontractor would just verify that. And they would just enter in a 0 as well when they go to verify it.
Okay. What if a correction was needed after signing, like something was transposed, or how can that be fixed?
Yeah. So what you can do is, for example, let's say you made a payment on an estimate and you accidentally selected the wrong estimate and you signed the payment. So what you can do is ask the subcontractor to verify that payment and enter in no as for not as expected, and then go ahead and enter in $0, and then that will basically nullify that payment. And the prime would go ahead and enter in the payment for the actual estimate that was intended to be recorded on. Then the subcontractor would verify the new payment record for the actual estimate that was recorded on. And I believe we're gonna, if it's not there, we're gonna have this as an example in our frequently asked questions as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just important to know that you can't, once you sign something, it's like dropping your tax return in the mailbox or something. It's like, it's gone. It's not changeable. So there's workarounds, but it's just important to be careful before you sign.
Yeah. So that report that you see during the review process, please use that report. So if you see anything that's incorrect, before you actually press that sign button, you can always go back, work backwards, and then go ahead and delete that payment. Very similar to what I showed you. It's in the row actions menu for that payment. You would just select the delete option and then press the save button.
Okay. A couple questions about how to get to the reports. The links are on the PowerPoint slides, and we've also sent out emails that everybody should have received. But I don't think we actually had 100% of all the subcontractors' email addresses, so we will be sending out additional emails that'll have copies, will have links to those reports on them. But again, you can also look at the slides for those links. Do we have to go backward in time to enter payments on jobs that are still open?
So
the answer, yeah, is definitely anything that's still open. Yes, you need to go and enter payments for, and that the reports will indicate if the projects are on the report, then then they're still open.
Right, and David also knows to note that they should have the proposal note 31 included in that contract for the ones that where they need to go ahead and record a payment on. So
Right.
if it
Yeah,
was released,
so
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
it's possible that there are a few contracts that are left that have an earlier version of Proposal Note 31, and that only requires the payment affidavits and doesn't actually require the entry into AASHTOWare Project, Civil Rights and Labor. So for those, we're not going to enforce the requirement to enter the payment information. But the vast majority of the projects that are active today have that requirement to enter payment information. It's been there for projects letting all the way back to February 22nd, 2016. Just not something that we've done the best job communicating. All right, what is the process if you did not receive a payment that is listed on an estimate?
So the prime has to take the lead as far as recording that payment to the subcontractor. So if you have not received your actual payment within that 10 days, please go ahead and contact the contract compliance officer. So if further action needs to be taken.
Yeah, I mean, you put it in the report that you got nothing. You got zero. You got your payment received, no, amount, zero. And the date, you just put today's date. But sometimes we've been finding that it could be that the prime just reported a payment incorrectly. So either way, I mean, whether you were expecting to receive this payment that you didn't get or not, you would still report that you didn't get it and put in a $0 amount.
Okay. Yeah, that's long
Right.
if the prime has recorded that payment in CRL.
Right.
That's right.
So can we enter self-performed if we do the work so the report will be cleaned up for missing signatures?
So the system won't allow you to enter in your own vendor ID as the payee. It will throw a message. We are looking into a possible workaround on that. That's something that needs to be discussed internally. And then once we have a solution in place, we'll go ahead and notify that out to the industry as what a workaround could be, so that if it's self-performed on an estimate, then you would be able to record that, and that way it will not show up in the report that you see for the prime contractors. But yeah, we understand that it'd be nice to have that report so that if it isn't an estimate that's self-performed, you don't want those to be displayed in the report itself. But we just ask you to do your best to note that if it is a payment that doesn't need to be recorded because it's self-work, so just go ahead and note that. And we're mainly looking for any ones where the payment should be recorded to the subcontractor.
Okay. On reports, what if you were paying more than one sub on an estimate?
So you would basically do a payment record to the first sub, and then you would record another payment record to a second sub. So there's going to be two payment records there. Basically what I showed was the one payment record to Lake Erie Construction, but then you would just have another payment record very similar to the first one, and it would just be to the second sub, and you would just go ahead and sign each of those payment records for each of the subs.
Okay. What if we are primarily a prime, but once in a while are a sub? Does that require a separate login?
No, it doesn't. So you will use the same username and password, and you'll use the same role. And so depending on the contract, so if you are a prime on the contract, you would go ahead and conduct the process as a prime contractor. And if you're a subcontractor on a contract, you would conduct the process as a subcontractor, just depending on which contract ID that you enter in under in the contract overview page. So if you remember in the contract overview page, I entered in the contract ID, which was LAK 87799, and I entered it as the prime contractor and recorded that payment out as the prime. And then when logged in as a sub, I use the same contract ID to do the verification part of it. So you would do the same process just by entering in the contract ID, whether you're working on as a prime or whether you're working as a sub.
Okay. Is the CRL website available for login now? If so, how do I register?
Yeah, it is available now. And if you do need a login, please go ahead and email CRL support. The email address is dot.crl.support@dot.ohio.gov.
Okay. Let's see. Can you please show the subcontractor reports link?
Yes, so we'll go ahead and go back to that report.
It's a long link. I mean, it's not really something you want to copy down because it's just really complicated. But like I said, it's in the email that you should have received.
This is Victoria. I just wanted to let everybody know we're getting close to the 3 o'clock time. So we'll probably be wrapping up questions at this point. Now, the presentation from today will be emailed out to everyone who registered for the webinar. So if you're looking for that link, you'll be able to copy it out of the presentation that's going to be emailed out to you. And thank you both to Await and to David for the great job they did on this topic. I know it is a tough topic, and they've done a great job explaining it, and we sincerely appreciate the time they've taken to go through this explanation. And I know that they'll be answering the questions that were asked during the webinar, so we can get those back out to you with written answers, hopefully here shortly. But we'll get you the PowerPoint as a starting point. So gentlemen, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's it for now. So thanks everybody for joining our webinar, and do please contact us if you have further questions or need assistance.
Thank you both.
All
Everyone
right.
have a good afternoon.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.